So we are getting right into this YouTube. In this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly what it takes to start a worm casting bin, how to harvest, how to recycle, everything you need to do basically. It's a quick tutorial on what I do and what you should do if you decide you want to start yourself your own worm casting bin. So, I'm going to begin with the ground up. Normally I have filters from coffee filters. That's what they call them. Yeah, normally I have coffee filters on the top there. That's part or piece of one right there. That's something that I will end up putting back into the bottom layer. You'll see that later in the video because I promise you want to have some microbes to start up your bottom layer. Whether or not you probably, if you're this far along with your worm casting, you should already have microbes in the layer right directly beneath this layer. The worms should be going in and out between there, eating up stuff and doing what they do. But what I'm showing you here is exactly what I would do if you need to harvest. It's super simple, super easy. You don't have to go crazy with it. Basically, what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to show you the agitation method. Basically, what all it is you just kind of pick the soil around. You go through like maybe an inch or two into the soil and you just kind of scrape it around. You'll see me do it, slowly here and there. Pick out any big bits, like that. It's a little piece of, I'm assuming wood or maybe a chunk of something. I feed them bananas quite often, and the tips of the bananas are quite woody. So it's something that does break down, but it takes a little longer. That's probably what it was. Those things do break down, I promise you, though. It just takes a little bit of time. They're a little tough. But I mean, as you can see, all you gotta do is just scrape things back, and just give it a little handful. And the idea here is you shine a very bright light onto them, so that way, whenever you're moving the soil, basically they'll try and move down because they don't like the light. They want to be away from the light. They like the darkness. So I'm trying to encourage them to go down to help me. And that's basically what you're gonna want to do if you try to do this method. There's a variety of other methods you can try to do. This is just one that I do, and there's reasons for it. It's a very time-consuming process, but it doesn't harm the worms as much. There's other methods you can do out there. I just don't want to have to sift through a million worms, honestly, I probably get like 90 to 95% of the worms out of the castings this way, and then I don't really have too many in my castings itself, which makes for a good end product. But there is that 5% that are like very small, microscopic worms. They're very small worms, and if you ever own your own worm bin or something like that, you'll discover it very quickly after you buy your worms. Hopefully you buy them from me. But after you buy them, give it a month or two, and the worms, the cocoons and all that, they will start to populate the bin properly. And what you'll end up seeing is these little tiny little slivers that don't really look like worms, but I promise you they are. um yeah, it's a crazy process owning and allowing these worms to produce. It's something that if you end up doing it yourself, I promise it's very rewarding. It's a crazy process. It's something that I encourage everybody to do for a few reasons. One of the main reasons is because if you own a compost bin like this, you're going to reduce your waste by up to 30%. I mean, you can feed a variety of different things to this thing. You can feed it eggshells. You can feed any fruits, any vegetables, from what I've seen for the most part. Stay away from some of the crazier stuff, like maybe like lime, things that are super acidic or harmful, like harsh to us. Things like jalapenos, your basic fruits and veggies, broccoli, carrots, cabbage, kale, spinach, apples, bananas. I feed strawberries. I feed a bunch of different things. I mean, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, as long as it's not something that's super harmful to us. You can feed it to your worms. It's always something that you can ask me in the comments if whether or not you can feed something to your worms. You can ask me in the comments down below. I'm more than happy to answer your question. Trust me, it's not a problem. Or Google's your friend. But either way, I've got your back. But and then you'll basically, the way the worm bin is gonna work is, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have your top layer, which is gonna be like some type of cocoa core, peat moss, um, maybe just leaves, something like that. You want something for your worms to be able to kind of like live in, while they're eating up the cardboard underneath, because you're gonna want a good source of cardboard. That's how I make my worm castings. They always come out super rich, and a wonderfully rainforest soil smell. They're so rich. I promise you, the castings I have are so rich, and I want to encourage you to make your own castings. I mean, it's okay to, go ahead and buy some. I'm selling. If you don't want to make them, I'm okay with that. I'm your man. But I also encourage you, if you want to experiment, it's gonna help the earth. It'll reduce waste in your home. You're gonna be feeding, like oatmeal. If you get old oatmeal, um, uh, a variety of different things. The eggshells are kind of important. Coffee grounds are a big thing. Most people drink coffee, so all those things are things you can feed. You can feed paper, you can feed leaves, you can feed a variety of different plants. There's a bunch of different things you can feed, but be very careful, because if you feed things like dairy or meat or shellfish, you're gonna get mold, and it's gonna kill off your whole worm population. Like, I promise you, what's gonna happen is it's gonna spread. Disease is gonna spread throughout your soil, and it's gonna kill everything, and you're gonna have a major problem. So just avoid those type of things. Um, it's super easy to maintain. Just stick to the basic stuff, you know what I'm saying? Every once in a while, you can add things like grains and rice if you want to. The oatmeal is something I usually add in. I usually mix up oatmeal, and then I mix up eggshells together, and I kind of feed it as a super worm chow, and it works really well. They eat that stuff really quickly, and they really love it. And yeah, it's just something that I really think that, helps the worms to thrive. And when you have a bin, you got to make sure to maintain the moisture in this. This is very important in any worm bin. Things like that, moisture. If it's too high, you're gonna have problems. If it's too low, you're gonna have problems. It's something that you can either dial in or something like that. Usually, what I'm aiming for in my soil is something that's kind of it's still very moist, but not like soaking wet. What they say is like a wrung out sponge, but it's something that you're gonna have to kind of get a feel for. Because if you can't, it's something that you can't like teach super well. But it's not something that's hard to master. Within a month or two, you'll have it down. I can promise you that. But yeah, this is pretty much what it looks like whenever you're picking out castings and things like that. It's a super simple process. It's a super quick process. It's something I highly recommend. You start up, or if you want to, you can go ahead and go through me, and I'll make sure that things go through nicely for you. But here's a little time lapse of exactly what it looks like to give you a little better reference, and I know you're gonna love it. All right, now right here, basically, I'm going to be showing y'all exactly how to harvest your worm castings. And this is going to be a vital part if you are, running a business like I am. This is obviously something you're going to want to do. But if you're just doing it for, at home use, you can do this. You don't really need to. If you're going to harvest your worm castings and it's something you're just doing for yourself, it doesn't really matter as much to do this. The main reason why I do this is because I want my end product to be ready for a consumer. But what you're looking at here is um, basically a filter, a strain, a screen, a mesh, whatever you want to call it. It's a 1/4 inch. It's basically chicken wire. It's something I custom made. myself. So, it's not perfect, but it gets the job done, perfect or right. So that's all I'm really concerned with. It's something that I don't really care if it's perfect. I just want to make sure that I get the job done right. And that's what matters to me, that's what should matter to you as well. But what I'm doing here is I'm just picking out the stuff, picking out worms and stuff like that. What I end up doing is I'll leave behind the bigger material, things like the cardboard, things like paper, the bigger pieces of perlite, stuff like that. Those are things that I'm just gonna leave out of my worm castings, and that's why I have this screen, which is basically like chicken wire. It's super, simple. It's super cheap stuff, and I just have some like 1x2s. Simple stuff. I don't like to go too crazy with it. But yeah, the reason why I end up keeping behind all the bigger stuff is because I want that bigger stuff for my bins, and I also want it out of my end product for the consumers. But if you are doing this, it doesn't matter, because all this stuff, what's going to happen is the worms are going to end up eating everything. They're going to eat whatever cardboard is up in there, whatever paper, whatever, if there's any bigger matter up in there or anything like that, they'll end up eating it. Perlite doesn't really matter in your worm castings at home, because you're going to be using it in the potting soil, and it's just going to help you out anyway. So it's something that doesn't really matter. None of that really matters, you know what I'm saying? But for me, the reason why I end up wanting to keep it, and what I end up keeping is like I said, the paper, the cardboard, stuff like that. And also what I end up keeping is like bigger chunks of worm compost, the worm castings. And the reason why I end up keeping these bigger chunks of worm castings is because these castings will end up having cocoons in them. And what a cocoon is basically, it's a worm egg, to put it simple, and it'll hatch a bunch of worms. And I want to keep that for myself because it helps me to reproduce worms, so I don't have to buy so many here soon, hopefully. But yeah, that's basically what you're looking at whenever you're harvesting your worm castings. For me, this is how it looks. Now, like I said, if you're doing this at home, you can skip this process altogether. It's ultimately up to you, but the worms will eat and degrade everything in the compost, in the end castings, by themselves. So you don't have to worry about that too much. But what will end up happening is you will more than likely end up killing out your worms or something like that if you just leave them in the pot. Maybe not. It depends on how you're growing here. It depends what you feed. It depends in a variety of different factors, those are things that I can teach you, and you will learn over the series of my YouTube channel about how exactly you need to maintain worms and make sure that they stay in the right environment so you don't kill them, because they can be killed very easily if you let things go the wrong way. But they're also super easy to maintain if you just stick to the right things, moisture, giving them food, things like that. But if you're just growing them in like a pot, there's a very good chance that they may end up dying. There might not be enough food or enough stuff in there. They may end up living and thriving depending on what you give them. You'll find out. But if you throw them in the ground with your worm castings, you can expect that they'll probably live, and they'll probably actually stick around your area, especially since they already know that the castings, the soil already has good microbes in it. They're not going to migrate away from that. There's no point. Why would you move away from a good food source if you don't need to? It's like if you were a deer hunter and the deer just came right to you, and it's there's no point in there's no point in moving away. So why would they do that? It's super simple, It's super simple stuff. It's just worm poop, You don't have to really worry about doing anything too crazy with it. If you want to do like I do, what I normally do and what I recommend you do is, if you're going to use your castings, Use them as soon as possible, because what will end up happening is, as those microbes dry out and degrade, they will slowly die off, and the colonies will die off. All your bacteria, your fungi, things like that will slowly die off, and what will end up happening is you'll end up with a less potent product. Don't get me wrong, okay? You can have castings that's been, properly stored for 6 months, and they're still going to be amazingly beneficial. But compared to fresh castings, it's a night and day thing. That's why I always recommend people to, buy from your local casting developer, your local casting producer, because he's going to have something that's going to be a lot more valuable to you than what you're going to find on a shelf from a store. Those are made to be put on the shelves and last for a while, so they dry them out in a very not so beneficial way for the microbes, so you'll end up losing a lot of the benefits of it. And that's why a lot of people have bad experiences with buying worm castings from these stores and such, because they buy from these big brands. These big brands don't have you in mind, they have money in mind. So, I'm ultimately trying to produce something that's, gonna be very beneficial to you. Keep it organic. I'm trying to keep it, friendly for your kids, for your pets, for anybody, so anybody can use this, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to keep it something simple. That way everybody can have, a good time with these castings. When you start doing all this other stuff and you start adding in and it doesn't work, it builds a lot of distrust, and that's what we don't need in the industry, So I promise you, look into what I'm saying, do what I'm doing, and I promise you will end up in a great spot. Okay, YouTube. So I'm gonna come clean. I forgot to hit the record button. I do apologize. I didn't mean to do that. I was checking, see if I was recording, and then all of a sudden I looked over and the camera, and then it was like boom, it wasn't recording. So that wasn't cool. But I promise you, Scouts Sergeant, I'm holding 3 fingers up. All I did was add the stuff from the harvest, the big things like I said that I keep, the big pieces of perlite, the cardboard, the paper, the big castings. All I'm doing is adding that on top. See, he's showing me doing it. I promise. Anyways, uh, all that's underneath this is it's just cardboard. Um, it's just cardboard from the underneath the previous layer. I'm not doing anything extra to it. I'm just putting the stuff on top. And the reason why I do this, like I said earlier, is because I want to make sure to introduce the microbes from the previous bin. It just helps start things up even faster. I highly recommend you do this if you are going to do your own compost bin. 100%. And on top of that, I'll just, make sure to put everything else that was on there, those little shredded up coffee filters or whatever else is over there. Just make sure to put everything back up in there. It's going to help your environment to stay right. One thing I make sure I usually never do, after I harvest, I don't feed. I feed the day after. I just think it helps the worms, be less stressed, which helps them produce better. I mean, if you are, a worm and you were less stressed, you'd probably produce better too, something like that. Just super simple stuff. But yeah, make sure to stay tuned. When spring comes around, I'm going to start doing some side-by-side plant comparisons, things like that. Check out my sister channel because there's going to be some crazy stuff going on there. Brothers and Bud Farms, crazy things going on over there. And make sure to stay tuned for next week's episode. Not next week. It's going to be here in a few days. And basically what it's going to be about why worm castings are better than compost and better than manure. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison. And I promise you, you're going to really enjoy that episode. So just stay tuned, YouTube. Stay tuned. Y'all have a wonderful day and a wonderful New Year's. Peace.